Good morning, people. Well, it's time to read the Bible. I do want to point out several of you have been really commenting, liking, watching the videos all the way through, and I really do appreciate all the engagement. The channel's growing way faster than I thought it would, so I really do appreciate you guys. Let's get into this. Today is January the 13th. We're going to be reading Genesis 41 through 43. Last we heard, Joseph got sent to a prison camp for messing with some other guy's wife. Even though he never touched her, she lied about it. So he got sent there, and then there's a chief and a chef and a butler that they didn't live up to the Pharaoh's expectations, so they got sent to the prison camp. They had a couple of dreams. Joseph deciphered them. They came true, and the butler took his place back with the Pharaoh, but he didn't remember Joseph. So we shall see what happens in the future. So on to Genesis 41. Then it came to pass, at the end of 2 full years, that Pharaoh had a dream, and behold, he stood by the river. Suddenly there came up out of the river 7 cows, fine looking and fat, and they fed in the meadow, eating all that grass. Then behold, 7 other cows came up after them out of the river, ugly and gaunt, and stood by the other cows on the bank of the river. And the ugly and gaunt cows ate up the 7 fine looking and fat cows. So Pharaoh awoke. He slept, and he dreamed a second time, and suddenly 7 heads of grain came up on one stalk, plump and good. And then, behold, 7 thin heads, blighted by the east wind, sprang up after them. And the 7 thin heads devoured the 7 plump and full heads. So Pharaoh awoke, and indeed it was a dream. Now it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all its wise men. And Pharaoh told them his dreams, but there was no one who could interpret them for Pharaoh. Then the chief butler spoke to Pharaoh, saying, I remember to my faults this day, when Pharaoh was angry with his servants and put me in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, both me and the chief baker. We each had a dream in one night, he and I. Each of us dreamed according to the interpretation of his own dream. Now there was this young Hebrew man with us there, a servant of the captain of the guard, and we told him, and he interpreted our dreams for us. To each man he interpreted according to his own dream. And it came to pass, just as he interpreted for us, so it happened. He restored to me my office, and he hanged him, the other guy. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him quickly out of the dungeon, and he shaved, changed his clothing, and came to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream. There is no one who can interpret it, but I heard that you can understand a dream to interpret it. So Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not me. God will give Pharaoh an answer of peace. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, Behold, in my dream I stood on the riverbank. The 7 cows, the good-looking ones, came, and then the unhealthy ones ate them. And same thing with the crop. Let me see here. I'm kind of skipping a little bit to save time. Okay, so then Pharaoh, he just finished explaining his dream, which was like this long. So Joseph said to Pharaoh, the dreams of Pharaoh are one. So he means, I guess, that, they're synchronous. They kind of mimic each other. God has shown Pharaoh that what he's about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads are 7 years, and the dreams are one. And the 7 thin and ugly cows which came up after them are 7 years, and the empty heads blighted by the east wind are 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken to Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do, and indeed 7 years of great plenty will come throughout all of Egypt. But after them 7 years, a famine will arise, and all the plenty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and famine will deplete the land. So the plenty will not be known in the land because of the famine following, for it will be very severe. And the dream was repeated to Pharaoh twice, because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now, therefore, let Pharaoh select a discerning and wise man and set him over the land of Egypt. Now, Pharaoh, do this and, or it says, let Pharaoh do this and let him appoint officers over the land to collect 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt in the 7 plentiful years. And let them gather the food of those good years that are coming and store the grain under the authority of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. Then that food shall be a reserve for the land for the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land may not perish during the famine. So the advice was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said to his servants, "Can we find such a one as this man, a man who is in the spirit of God?" Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Inasmuch as God has shown you all this, there is no one as discerning and wise as you. You shall be over my house, and all of my people shall be ruled according to your word. Only in regard to your throne will I be greater." So the only one above Joseph now is Pharaoh. What a come up. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I see, I have set you over all the land of Egypt." And then Pharaoh took his great signet ring off his hand and put it on Joseph's hand, and he clothed him in garments of fine linen and put gold chains around his neck. And he had him ride in the second chariot which he had, and they cried out before him, "Bow the knee." So he set him over all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh also said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh, and without your consent no man may lift his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt." So Joseph's calling all the shots, I guess. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath Paneah, and he gave him a wife, Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On. So Joseph went out over all the lands. Yep. I was thinking of something else. My mind was going. Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. Now in the 7 plentiful years of the ground brought forth abundantly. He gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid the food in the cities. He laid in every city the food of the fields which surrounded them. Joseph gathered very much grain, and as the sand of the sea, until he stopped counting, for it was immeasurable. And Joseph were born 2 sons after the years of famine came from Asenath, the wife of Potiphera, priest of On, bore to him. Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God has made me forget all of my toil and my father's house. And the name of the second son he called Ephraim, for God has caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. For the 7 years of plenty which in the land of Egypt ended, and the 7 years of famine began to come. And Joseph said, "The famine was in all the lands, but in all the lands of Egypt there was bread." So when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh, saying, "Go to Joseph, whatever he says you do," because they were wanting bread. And then and that was just his answer. So the people were crying for bread, and then Pharaoh said to those people, like, "Go to Joseph, do whatever he says." The famine was over all the face of the earth, and Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold to the Egyptians, and the famine became severe in the land of Egypt. So all the countries came to Joseph in Egypt to buy grain, because the famine was severe in all of the lands. So on to Genesis 42. When Jacob saw that there was grain in Egypt, Jacob said to his sons, "Why do you look at one another?" He said, "Indeed, I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down to that place and buy it there for us, so we may live and not die." So Joseph's 10 brothers went down to Egypt to buy some grain, but Jacob did not send Joseph's brother Benjamin, for his brothers said, "Lest some calamity befall him." And the sons of Israel went out to buy grain. Among these who journeyed for the famine, it was in the land of Canaan. Okay. Now Joseph was governor over the land, and it was he who sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brother came and bowed down before him with their faces to the earth. Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them, but he acted as a stranger to them and spoke roughly to them. Then he said to them, "Where do you come from?" And they said, "From the land of Canaan, to buy some food." So Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. And then Joseph remembered the dream for which he had dreamed about them and said to them, "You are spies. You have come to the nakedness of the land." And they said to him, "No, my lord, but your servants have come to buy food. We are all one man's son. We are honest men. Your servants are not spies." But he said to them, "No, but you have come to the nakedness of the land." And they said, "Your servants are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And in fact, the youngest is with our father today, and one is no more." But Joseph said to them, "It is as I spoke to you, saying, You are spies. In this manner you shall be tested by the life of Pharaoh, and you shall not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you, and let him bring your brother, and you shall be kept in prison, that your words may be tested to see whether there is any truth in you, or else by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies." So he put them all together in prison for 3 days. Then Joseph said to them on the third day, "Do this and live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers be confined to your prison house. But you go and carry grain for the famine of your houses, and bring your youngest brother to me, so your words will be verified, and you shall not die." And so they did. They said to one another, "We are truly guilty concerning for our brother, for we saw the anguish of his soul when he pleaded with us, and we would not hear. Therefore, this distress has come upon us." And Reuben answered them, saying, "Did I not speak to you, saying, 'Do not sin against the boy,' and you wouldn't listen? Therefore, behold, his blood is now required of us." But they did not know that Joseph understood them, for he spoke to them through an interpreter. And he turned himself away from them and wept. Then he returned to them again and talked with them and said, or he took Simeon from them and bound him before their eyes. And then Joseph gave a command to fill their sacks with grain, to restore every man's money to his sack, and to give them provisions of the journey. Thus he did for them. They got loaded with their donkeys and with grain and departed from there. But as one of them opened his sack to give his donkey feed at the encampment, he saw his money, and there it was in the mouth of the sack. So he said to his brothers, "My money has been restored, and it's in my sack." And then their hearts failed them, and they were afraid, saying to one another, "What is this that God has done to us?" And then they went to Jacob their father in the land of Canaan, and told him all that had happened to them, saying, "The man who was the Lord of the land spoke roughly and took us for spies of the country. But we said to him, 'We are honest men, we are not spies. We are the 12 brothers, sons of one father. One is no more, and the youngest is with our father in the land of Canaan.' Then the man, the Lord of the country, said to us, 'By this I will know that you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers here with me. Take the food for the famine to your households, and be gone. And bring the youngest brother here to me, so I shall know that you are not spies, but that you are honest men, and I will grant your brother back to you, and you may trade in the land.' And then it happened, as they emptied their sacks, that surprisingly each man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when their father saw the bundles of money, they were afraid. And Jacob, their father, said to them, 'You have bereaved me. Joseph is no more, Simeon is no more, and you want to take Benjamin? All these things are against me.' Then Reuben spoke to his father, saying, 'Kill my 2 sons if I do not bring him back to you, but put him in my hands, and I will bring him back to you.' So Reuben said, 'Look, I'm going to take Benjamin, and if I don't bring him back, you can kill my 2 boys.' But he said, 'My son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If any calamity should befall him if any calamity should befall him along the way in which you go, then you would bring down my gray hair with sorrow to the grave.'" So basically saying, like, if you don't bring him back, it's going to kill me. So on to Genesis 43. Now the famine was severe in the land, and it came to pass, when they had eaten up the grain for which the they had brought from Egypt, and their father said to them, "Go back and buy us a little food." But Judah spoke to him, saying, "The man solemnly warned us, saying, 'You shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. If you send our brother with us, we will go back down and buy some food. But if you will not send him, we will not go down to buy the food.' For the man said, 'You shall not see my face unless your brother is with you.' And Israel said," which is pretty sure Jacob. You know, he got two names. Yeah, Jacob. He's Israel as well. We're staying on track. So Israel said, "Why do you deal so wrongly with me as to tell the man whether you still had another brother?" Like he's like, why would y'all say that? But they said, "The man asked us pointedly about ourselves and our family, saying, 'Is your father still alive? Have you another brother?' And we told him according to these words. We could not possibly have known what he would say. 'Bring your other brother down.' Then Judah said to Israel his father, 'Send the lad with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and you and our little ones. I myself will be surety for him, for my hand you shall require him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever. For if we had not lingered, surely by now we would have returned for the second time.' And their father Israel said to them, 'If it must be so, then do this. Take some of the best fruits of the land in your vessel and carry them down as a present for the man, a little balm and a little honey, spices and myrrh, pistachio nuts and almonds. Take double money in your hand, and take back in your hand the money that was returned in the mouth of your sacks. Perhaps it was an oversight. Also take your brother also, and arise, go back to the man, and God Almighty give you mercy before the man, and that you may release your other brother and Benjamin. If I am bereaved, I am bereaved.' So he says, it's going to be what it's going to be. So the men took that present and Benjamin, and they took double the money in their hand, and arose and went down to Egypt and stood before Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the steward of the house, 'Take these men to my home and slaughter an animal and make ready, for these men will dine with me at noon.' Then the men did as Joseph ordered, and the man brought the men into Joseph's house. Now the men were afraid because they thought they were brought into Joseph's house, and they said, 'Is it because we of the money which was returned in our sacks that we brought in, so that he may make a case against us and seize us and take us as slaves with our donkeys?' When they drew near to the steward of Joseph's house, they talked with him at the door of the house and said, 'Oh, sir, we indeed came down for the first time to buy food, but it happened when we came back to our encampment that we opened our sacks, and each man's money was in the mouth of the sack. Our money was full weight, so we have brought it back for our hand.'" So they're trying to pay for the food that they got a long time ago, and for that first trip. "And when we have brought down other money in our hands to buy food, we did not know who put it back in our sacks. But he said, 'Peace be with you, do not be afraid. Your God and the God of our father has given you treasure in your sacks. I had your money.' Then he brought Simeon out to them. So the men brought out the men into Joseph's house and gave them water, and he washed their feet, and he gave their donkeys feed." So Simeon, I guess, is the one that stayed back, that brother that was in the prison. So, he washed their feet and fed their donkeys. Then they made the present ready for Joseph's coming at noon, I guess the meal, for they heard that they would eat bread there, is what it says. And then Joseph came home. They brought him the present which was in their hand into the house, and bowed down before him to the earth. And then he asked about their well-being and said, "Is your father well? The old man of whom you spoke, is he still alive?" And they answered, "Your servant, our father, is in good health. He is still alive." And they bowed their heads and prostrated themselves. And then he lifted his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said, "Is this your younger brother of whom you spoke to me?" And he said, "God be gracious to you, my son." Now his heart yearned for his brother. So Joseph made haste and sought somewhere to weep, and went into his chamber and wept there. When he washed his face and came out, he restrained himself and said, "Serve the bread." So they set him a place by himself, and themselves by themselves, and the Egyptians who ate with them by themselves, because the Egyptians could not eat food with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination to the Egyptians. And they sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his birthright. And the men looked in astonishment at one another, and he took servings to them from before him. But Benjamin's serving was 5 times as much as any of the others. So they drank, and they were merry with him during the little lunch, I guess. So that's gonna wrap it up for us. Oh man, could you imagine the surprise when they figure out that it's their brother that they sold long ago? Yeah, Joseph, he's a smart guy. He's playing all these mind games with his brothers. That's gonna wrap it up for us today. I hope everyone has a good day. Make sure, if you would like to, like, comment, subscribe, and share the videos and the channel. And we'll pick up tomorrow on Genesis 44 through 47 for January 14th, and get some more clarity on what goes on in this situation. Thank you so much.